All right. Well, thanks to everyone for taking the time to join the Dallas Fort Worth's April, or sorry, not April, June edition of the Power Platform User Group. And we're excited to be talking about all the announcements that we've had from Build last week. And then we have Krishna joining us today, where he's going to talk about how you can customize approvals without using the approval actions, but with the combination of Power Apps and Power Automate. And we'll take a look at what our agenda looks like for today. We'll go through some intros and some recent announcements, and then which would be all of the coverage from Build. And then we'll have Krishna go through his session, and then we'll have an open forum just for us to network, ask questions, share feedback, thoughts, and comments. We always look forward to it all. Some quick intros here. I think my slides been switching up faster than me. Give me a second. Here we go. So I'm Geetha Sivasailam. I'm an architect with Artist Consulting. I'm also a Power Platform lead with the company, and we're a Microsoft partner based out of Dallas, Texas. And my colleague, who's also a co-founder of the organization, Ben. I don't think he has joined us yet, but he's also a principal at the company and also my colleague. I do want to kind of just get into our quick build announcements here. And what I'm going to do is just turn off my video because I've noticed that sometimes I have a lag if I have my camera turned on. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that off while I'm talking, and then I'll turn it on back when I'm not presenting. All right, let's jump right into Build. Now, Microsoft Build this year was heavily focused on how AI is redefining the future of work with copilots and plugins. So I'm sure you've heard a lot of AI and copilots throughout the last week, and unfortunately, that's how it's going to be for this session as well. We did see several announcements around the Copilot AI assistance technology last week, including some really cool strategic product-related reveals that will have a more widespread impact for organizations. The official definition of a Copilot from Microsoft is it's an application that uses modern AI and large language models to assist you with a complex cognitive task. For example, you could write a sales pitch, or you could catch up on a missed meeting, or even generating images for a presentation. There are some features in preview, some in private preview, limited preview, and some that are available or are coming your way. So we'll walk through all of that, and then I'll also be dropping a couple of resources for you to take a look. Now let's kind of just do a deep dive on some of the top announcements that we've seen since last week. The number one here, one of the biggest announcements that Build was Microsoft Fabric. Now, as we enter a new era defined by AI, data is becoming very, very important. So a constant supply of clean data from a well-managed and highly integrated analytic system is what's needed to power up any of your AI experiences. And this is what may lead to the need for stitching together, a complex set of services that may be disconnected, going out to multiple data sources, and also incurring the costs and burdens of making those services function together. Now, this is where Microsoft Fabric comes in. The whole perk of how Microsoft Fabric, or intent of Microsoft Fabric, is to bring together all of that data and analytical tools that your organizations need by integrating technologies like Azure Data Factory, Azure Synapse Analytics, and Power BI into a single unified product. And this will enable organizations to unlock a potential of tapping into their data and surfacing all of that up efficiently for AI. So think of Fabric as a software as a service, a SaaS service. It does use a multi-cloud data lake, which is called One Lake. That's the terminology that Microsoft's provided for that. And then data is organized in a very intuitive data hub. And it's automatically indexed for discovery, for sharing, governance, and compliance. And so this is definitely one of the biggest announcements we've seen at Build. And a quick note for those of you wanting to try that out, if you are used to working with Power BI as a product and having any of your data in silos being surfaced up for analytics, this might be something to try. So today, Power BI customers can get access to Fabric by turning on a tenant setting in your Power BI admin tools. So if you know a Power BI admin, you can always have them go turn that on. Now this switch is turned off by default. You can also choose to opt in or opt out of Fabric. through the admin portal. You could enable Fabric for a specific set of users or security groups within your tenant if you just want to test it out and do some trial and error. Now, if no action is taken by the administrator, Fabric will be turned on by default for all Power BI tenants starting July 1st. So just something to keep in mind if you are looking into getting started with Microsoft Fabric. Our next announcement was around the Copilot in Power BI. This is currently in a private preview. And you can bring the power of large language models into Power BI at every layer. So now your users can get more done and create more value from their data. Some of the examples of amazing capabilities that will be enabled for us once this is in public preview is like creating and tailoring reports in seconds and being able to generate and edit DAX calculations. You can create narrative summaries, ask questions about your data, all using conversational language. So that little visual that you see there at the top, you see like how you can ask your Copilot or prompt it to build a sales report by summarizing metrics and trends. And then it turns all of the data that you have, and then it's able to spin up a sales overview report, and it drops in all the visuals, and it's pure magic how Copilot works. Now, this is in private preview, so hopefully we will have our the keys to play around with it pretty soon, but something to keep in mind as it's coming your way. Next is Power Pages Copilot. This is currently in public preview only for the North American regions. It is currently revolutionizing how you build and launch data-centric business websites. So you can generate text, you can build detailed forms and chatbots in minutes with just the power of natural language. And Copilot in Power Pages has several upcoming AI capabilities, and we're going to be listing that. I'm just talking about it in brief, but some things like page creation, site theming, image generation, and all of that's coming in summer of 2023. So hopefully in the next couple of months. And another important announcement for Power Pages are virtual tables. Think of virtual tables as a way to you're not replicating data, but more like a virtual table for you where it lives in Dataverse and it can contain data from an external data source. So today, as per the announcement, you have SQL Server and SharePoint supported at this point in time, but it will behave just like a native Dataverse table. So that way, your app makers can create rich websites connected to a virtual table, and you can also trigger your Power Automate cloud flows based on web events and tap into any of your external data sources, and still leverage all the 1,000+ pre-built and custom connectors and standard connectors that you have out in the Microsoft Power Platform ecosystem. Next, we have the Power Virtual Agents. So there are several AI capabilities we've kind of listed there, just with a note on whether it's in preview or public preview or generally available. So you can take a look at all of that. But I'm going to kind of give you a quick overview of what we really have coming our way. And with the Power Virtual Agents, you are able to normally create bots where you can ask questions and the bot will provide the users with answers, and it will, you can also complete actions by calling any backend APIs. Traditionally, that's how you built it, and you build it manually using dialogues. And then, and as a bot builder or a bot maker, you'd have to anticipate the question or action a user might request, and then kind of craft your dialogues to handle each of those scenarios based on the request the user may have. But now with generative AI, you can simply point the bot to a knowledge source, a website, an internal SharePoint or documents that you are hosting in your tenant, and the bot can use all of those generative answers to provide a very rich chat experience using that content. Now, in the image, you can see that you have the new generative answers node within the canvas, but that's the middle section that's highlighted there. You can get more sophisticated if you have a Microsoft Azure OpenAI service instance in your tenant, or and also enabled for your company data. Then you can hook that up with Power Virtual Agents, and that would allow your bots to have full access to all of those capabilities. So that's something really powerful, and there's been several evolving AI enhancements coming in the Power Virtual Agents product as a whole. So there's definitely something to keep an eye out for, and if you do have access to any trial previews, you would want to definitely check that out. Moving on to some more generic announcements here. This next one is a Copilot stack. Microsoft's been adopting the same open plugin standard as OpenAI, just how OpenAI introduced it for ChatGPT. So, developers can use a single platform to build plugins that work across both business and consumer services, which includes ChatGPT, Bing, Dynamics 365 Copilot, or Microsoft 365 Copilot, or even Windows Copilot. Now, they will be able to extend Microsoft 365 Copilots with plugins. And when we say plugins, what that means is for Microsoft 365, you could include ChatGPT, Bing plugins, and also work with Teams message extensions and tap into your Power Platform connectors. So it's just figuring out what's the art of possible, because you now have a wide variety of extensions available and plugins that you can create now, tap into any type of data source that you have out there or services that you would want to integrate with. Now, it does has the biggest advantage of having your developers leverage any existing investments that you've already made in services. And this plugin will serve as a bridge between your large language model and a website or a backend system or a service that your company uses. Another announcement on the tooling side is we do now have the new Azure AI Studio, which makes it easy for developers to integrate external data sources like Azure OpenAI Service. And then in addition, you also have Azure Machine Learning prompt flows that would make it easier for developers to construct prompts while also taking advantage of your whole prompt orchestration solutions like semantic kernel. Those are some of the new tooling capabilities that have been announced. Now, apart from that, there are a couple of, my minor announcements that, you'd see as things that I've learned as I've been watching sessions. So I thought I'd list that out, something just to keep in mind, because you may see certain things pop up or light up in your tenants this summer or maybe later on. One of them is, building a full-fledged application directly from an Excel spreadsheet. So what you can do is actually drag drop an Excel sheet with data into your Power Apps interface, and your AI Copilot will analyze the data, do all of its magic, and it'll create a dataverse with all the necessary columns and schema, and it will also generate a fully responsive Power App. So it's getting really sophisticated with the things that you can do. And this is also just another reason or another way to help organizations move away from Excel when Excel doesn't really, be a good, or doesn't end up being a good fit for your data. And as your data grows, and if it's gets into a more where you need more transactional relational data, it's a great way to get them onboarded into a Dataverse. This next one is custom plugins. Now developers can author reusable plugins in Dataverse using Power Effects to write business logic and Dataverse rules, which will help them define triggers and actions. Now, plugins in Dataverse can be also used to recreate actions that you may have existing in your source systems, like, for example, stored procs in SQL. You can now leverage those actions directly from Dataverse and within your Power Platform components. And it does store all of your action identifier, any configuration and authentication information that it needs in Dataverse. So therefore, you're able to have direct use of it within an app or within your Power Automate flows. One other big announcement that we had on the Power Automate side is a refreshed Cloud Flow Designer, which works in combination with Power Automate Copilot. The whole purpose of that was to accelerate how you automate your development and speed it up. And it does come with a new side panel where users can now make changes and engage with the Copilot, ask questions, and get some help, and kind of just speed up your development process. There's actually two ways to get to the new designer today, which is, you can either use the Describe It, Design It. If you've been on your Power Automate portal, you've probably seen a little tile that says Describe It, Design It, which is in preview, where you can go write a prompt of what you want Copilot to build, and then it also has some auto suggestions that you can pick up from, and it will generate a Cloudflow based off of that. That's one way to see the new designer. The other way is to edit an existing Cloudflow, and when you edit, you should have two options. One is the regular edit, which is your out of the box experience. The other option in the menu would say try the AI powered editing preview. So that's the way. I haven't seen it in my tenant yet, but hopefully it might be something that's coming up. But that's your way to get get to the new editing experience. And this next one has been one of my favorites so far, versioning for Cloudflows. This, as makers, we haven't had the option of version controlling our solution-based Cloudflows. You don't have the ability to revert to a previous version, or let's say, also being able to just have a way to just version control and see. And that's a feature that it's been most asked in forums, and we've been asking that for a long time. And so that's coming our way. So that's going to be in public preview in June. But it has to be a Cloudflow in a solution. And with that, and once this feature is enabled, you can view and restore to your past versions of your solution Cloudflow. So pretty excited about that. This next one here is catalog. Now, this is a new terminology. This is more around the Power Apps product. This is a new feature which will allow makers to publish and share all of your building blocks for your app components. So now, you have a single place to share components that can be used by anyone in the environment, and it can be modified as needed, and it can be created for both, like, audit trail or even accelerating the app building process for the organization. It's much more sophisticated, and it comes up so your organizations can now have a more robust catalog that reduces the time and cost for each new app. So gone are the times when you'd want to create like a template app and have people build a copy of the template app and start building things. You don't have to do that anymore. You could go with the catalog right now. And having a catalog also allows IT admins to maintain and govern their app ecosystems while supporting your organizational compliance and security policies. The last one there is the Copilot control coming to model apps, and also Copilot and Canvas apps. They're getting a major boost in understanding Dataverse data. So there's several new enhancements coming our way. And those are some of the additional features that, not really, you probably will learn them as you watch your sessions from Build, but something to keep in mind if you see them light up in your attendance. Here are a couple of resources, and I'll drop them in the chat shortly. And so, you have a reference point for these resources. There's also the book of news from Build 2023. That's a great way for you to see everything that's been announced. There have been over 50 plus updates announced at Build last week. So it's a good consolidated list of everything to look at, not just Power Platform, just the entire Microsoft stack. Quick announcement on events. We do have the Power Platform conference coming up in October 1 to 6. I think the conference days are going to be October 3 to 5, and then you have the workshops on the October 1st, 2nd, and 6th. This is an event sponsored by Microsoft, and it's going to be held in person in Las Vegas, and I am going to be there as well. I have a couple of sessions that I'm going to be speaking at. So if any of you are going to be there, just say hello, and I'd be happy to catch up with you all over there. Let me go back to the chat, take a quick break here, and see, do you guys have any thoughts, any questions, any other announcements that you've been excited about? I'm going to take it as you are all mind blown with the announcements and dumbstruck right now. You can't speak. All right, going on to our next part of our meetup today, we have Krishna. Krishna, thanks for joining us. And taking the time to share your knowledge with creating custom approvals with us here. Krishna is an architect with CompuSoft Integrated Solutions Inc. And he is a blogger. He's also a Microsoft Business Applications MVP, and he's also a Power Automate super user. So if you've ever had a question on the Power Automate forum and you've seen someone with Krishna's handle answer your questions, then that's who he is, and that's why he's been a super user, being very generous and kind enough to help the community out by answering all of the questions that come our way. So Krishna, this is all yours. We're excited to see what you've got to show us.
Thank you, Geetha. That's wonderful way to introduce me. But thanks so much. I'll turn off my camera and I'll focus on my presentation. So if you have any questions, please drop in the chat and I will answer them as we go, or maybe at the end of the session. So Geetha, do you mind confirming if you can see my screen?
Yes, I do. I see it.
Okay. Just to, Geetha already mentioned about me. I'm Microsoft Business Applications MVP, as well as ex super user in Power Apps and Power Automate, and also like the Power Apps community generally conducts yearly some extra webinar. So I was a winner in 2021 as well. And here is my contact in case if you want to reach out to me, please feel free to contact me in LinkedIn or Twitter or anywhere. I'll be happy to connect and provide my any response. In today's the use case today is I know like approvals is a very common use case. Every organization, if we take approvals, is a common thing that we talk about. Generally, like a document approval process or an invoice approval process or expenses or approval process. A lot of different objects requires approval process. So as we know, Microsoft already provided out of the box by using Power Apps, Power Automate's approval actions. We can implement the approval process within no time. Like if it is a single level or multi-level or even one person or multiple people are involved in it, we can actually implement the approval process pretty fast by using out of the box approval process. So I have it in this session. I'm actually targeting a very specific use case which I ran with one of my clients. I thought like maybe useful for other clients or all of you as well. That's why like I'm sharing this session. So in this use case, probably some of you already ran into this scenario as well. So my client has different offices throughout US, and all those offices are divided into regions like south, southwest, or east. Like so many divisions are there, and at each of these divisions actually works independent of other regions. So again, some hierarchy is in place in that specific division, and there is a headquarters where the corporate team also be there. So whenever any invoices, this client has so many vendors. They work on with different region in different regions with different locations. So whenever they do any work, those invoices needs to be reimbursed. So these invoices, they basically needs to submit at the region specific approval process. Then in that specific region, depending on the org structure, those different departments needs to approve it. Like I will show you, I have this use case in a diagrammatical representation as well. I'll show you that. So because each of these region specific locations are working independently, they in some regions they want serial approval process. In some regions, they want parallel approval process. Even within that region, they got multiple departments. They may want to specify one department as sequential, one department as parallel. It needs to be a very they want one solution that can work with the whole organization. They don't want to build separate flows or separate process for each region, but they should be flexible. The process should be flexible enough to accommodate region specific approval needs. So this one process will help us to build like a parallel or a sequential approval process. So if I show the same use case in a diagrammatical way, like the initiator actually submits an invoice, and in the division approver, there are multiple approvers will be there at a division. Based on the division, the approvers may approve the invoice in a sequential or parallel, not both of them together, but one of the options. In the same way, so at a division level they can be sequential, and in corporate level also, whether they can be sequential or parallel based on the division. So at every level they will have the flexibility. They need a flexibility of whether like a sequential or parallel approval. So what I meant sequential is, for example, if I have 2% or 20% in that approval for that particular level, they should be approving it one after the other. Like for example, in this, if you see here, like once the first person is approves it, then second one, then third one, then fourth one. If it is a parallel, all of them will get individual approval task, and one of them needs to approve it. Not every person, but one of them needs to approve it. So that's the parallel one. At any point of time, if the user actually rejects it, it should go back to the initiator, and whatever the rejection comments are, they need to address those requests. Then again, it will start again from approving it from the stage one. Any questions on this use case? I'll be happy to answer.
Yeah, everyone feel free to, raise your hand,
Yep.
or even drop the question in the chat, or just interrupt Krishna if you need to. We have, that's the whole purpose of the meetup. So, we can be as collaborative as we can, and also use this as an opportunity to share your thoughts and, experiences using these tools. So yeah, feel free to drop a question or raise your hand.
So the main so for this specific use case, I initially considered Power Automate approval actions. Then when I mean, because I also built so many approval processes by using out of the box. I personally prefer to use the out of the box features first. If something is not available, then we'll go with the customized approach. So when I check the approval actions, which most of these limitations, many of you may be aware of it. One is Power Automate flows. Maximum wait period is 28 days for approval actions. Like if whenever any approval process runs, that particular instance of the flow actually waits for the user's response. And there are different actions again. Depending on the action that you use, there are the flow will wait for the user to respond. Based on the response, whether it is approved or rejected, based on that the response, the rest of the actions in the flow will continue. And again, because of the limitation on the number of days, there is a workaround again. If the approval takes more than 28 days, there is a way to re-trigger the flow also, so that we can loop through till we get the response. That's one thing. And second thing is flow history. Always we know like a 28 days limit as well. Like if some flows, especially the approval process auditing is one of the important feature everybody asks for. So writing data into some external data sources like SharePoint or Dataverse tables or somewhere, so that the user, I mean, the approval history can be retained without relying on just the flow history. So again, still that is a limitation. And after, even if we wait for 28 days, and if the approval flows fails for some reason, I mean, because of the time limit, then the approval task will still remain in the action center. So, that will lead to some abandoned approval tasks. So that's another like a cleaning up. The environment admin or the requester, they need to clean up all those tasks if there are any abandoned actions. And also approvals with some custom responses set to everyone must approve as well. Um, there are also like there is one more limitation on the splitting create and wait actions. For example, when a approval flow is running, and then if a user immediately responds to an action, an approval request, then what happens is that before that action actually reaches the wait condition or wait action, then probably the flow will go into stuck in like in the wait stage. It will not be recovered. So there are some known issues with some create and wait actions as well. But keeping all of this, even though there are some limitations with these flows, still I highly recommend using approval actions out of the box one rather than customizing in your way. But in my use case, I got a very specific use case, and I don't want to build so complicated flow because we have again there are number of actions are limited, like a 500 actions we can build into flow. And also we don't want to create so many loops, so at one point the flow will become unmanageable. And also the number of API requests that we are making through the flow is also matters. So keeping all of that in mind, I actually selected a different route. So in this session, we'll talk about how I approached to address this particular use case. Any questions so far?
No, don't see any
Okay.
in the chat yet, but we've just been talking about like how everybody's using approval actions, and then also the capability of not having a state machine natively in the product itself. So we've just been just sharing how our experience has been with the approval actions when Power Automate.
Yes, I agree on that. Yeah. So in this demo, what I'm doing is I'm using Power Apps as my user interface, and I'm using SharePoint as a data source, but we can use the Dataverse or other repositories as well, data sources as well. So in this, I got bunch of SharePoint lists. I will show you that in action. And also there is a Power Automate flows as well, some background process. But it's the Power Automate flows, they are not using any approval actions. So there are no approval actions, but still we are using Power Automate flow. So the approval process happens in combination of Power Apps and Power Automate together. So let's see that. Just a second, I'm actually. Yeah. So this is my application, invoice application. This is a sample demo application. So this application has mainly three different roles of users. One is a requester who submits the invoice, and there is a second level like a approver who actually receives some notifications whenever any new invoice is submitted based on the region specific one. And the respective approvers will receive notifications, and also they can check the approval task dashboard to see all the data. And the third one is the administrator, who is nothing but the application administrator, who can actually set all the approvers for different regions, and he can review all the invoices, divisions, all the configuration data. He can manage everything for like a for the application. So before we get into the application, looking into it, I would like to show the SharePoint schema first, and then we will go there. So let's go into the. So first thing, I would like to show you the invoice approvers. This is the main SharePoint list. So this is you can consider approvers is the main configuration list. So my entire approval process is basically driven based out of this approval configuration list. So I have, if I go back to divisions, I considered every state in US as one division. I mean, separate divisions. So I got 50 states, so 50 divisions. So if I come to my approvers list, in the approvers, I got only three different kinds of approvals, like a division approver, corporate, and accounting approvers for this process. So in this approvers SharePoint list, I can define any number of people. For example, if you take, I got for only one division, I defined approvers. And for, let me filter for one of them, division approver. That's my first level. In that division approver, I defined three people as these are the three approvers who are part of approval process as division approvers for this particular division. And the main column that I'm using to manipulate the approval process is the approval order column. So here I defined these approvers as a sequential way, like 1, 2, 3. That means whenever the any invoice is submitted for this particular division, for this particular role, so the first person will get the approval task. Once he approves it, then it will move on to it will create another task and assign it to the second person, and then to the third person. Once all the three are done, then it will go to the next level. So for example, in this case, it's corporate accounting, sorry, corporate approval. So the next level it is. So in the corporate approver, again, if you see, it is all in the same division, different role, but here approval order is mentioned as zeros. That this is a like a very customized way. So I mentioned zeros. The reason is all these approvers will act like a parallel approvers because all of them carry the same weight in the order. That's why like it's zeros represents parallel approach. So because every person in this level for this particular division are having zeros, that means all the three people will be getting the tasks, emails, or tasks created and assigned to all the three people at the same time. And one of them needs to approve it. If one person approves it, the other two don't need to approve it, but they will see a message that like one of them already approved it. But in case if we, I mean, because this is a custom process, we can also tweak the process of saying like, okay, all of them needs to approve it, but in different timings, we can do that as well. But in the parallel process, we are not allowing the user, all of them, we don't need everybody's approval, but we are just considering only one person's approval. But in sequential, we are only considering or asking only one person's. I mean, all the people in the sequential should approve, but in the parallel, only one person needs to approve. So in the third one, if I go here again, the third one, again, I defined them as a sequential again, 1, 2, 3. So like this, we can have one person or 10 people or 100 people, doesn't matter. The process will still work. I can add more users to it. I can manipulate the order of approval process. I can switch back and forth between sequential to parallel or parallel to sequential by changing this configuration list. I don't even need to update my code. The process automatically picks up the data from this configuration list and automatically adjusts the data for the new invoice items. So we don't need any code changes there. And in apart from this divisions and approvers, we got a couple of more SharePoint lists like invoices. This is the main SharePoint list where all the invoices are getting stored. And invoice tasks, whenever any approval task is created in this SharePoint list, we are creating a task item and it will be assigned to that respective person. And also a lot of other metadata also captured here to smooth the process. And also this process will help us to like it tracks all the auditing information as well, like throughout the process, like from the starting step, like submission to till completion step, it will track all the changes in a customized way. I'll show you that in now in the application. So these are the main lists, but if I need, I'll go through the other documents or other lists as well as we go. So this is my Canvas application connected to that SharePoint site and all the individual lists. So for example, now again, for demo purpose, if I go here, we got this Alaska division. And as I said, the first step is division and then corporate and then accounting. So let's actually submit an invoice here. If I click on invoice, you will see an interface like this. We can add more metadata or other things as well. Generally, whenever we are up this is also one of the requirement. Whenever they are attaching files, they want to see the preview to make sure they are attaching the current correct document as well. So when they click on attach, I can attach some invoice. And I'm allowing, like, we can restrict the user to upload only one document at a time. That way, like, because the like we are storing all the data into a SharePoint list item can accept more than one attachments. So but in the Power Apps attachment control, we are restricting to attach only one. That way, like, we can always one invoice item will have one item. And after that, we need to select the metadata that we need, and then invoice number, some number, and vendor number, something test, invoice total amount. Maybe I'll say some 9,000, 9,000 as an amount, and some comments. I think I entered the same amount last time. So 9,000 I just entered. So as soon as I click on submit as a user, what happens is it will take us to success screen, and after that we will see some additional tabs as well. So once the invoice is submitted, I'll come back to the main dashboard. I will go to my request. This is not fully finished, but you can see the data is here. But my item is like 9,000, the total item. This is like I was trying to use modern controls, and I'm not fully done. This is a demo, so I'm still working on a lot of other features as well. So right now, like when we submit the item, then you can see the status is submitted. And once it's submitted, what happens is there is some business logic within the Power App itself, which will tell based on the item, it will identify whether it's a new item or an existing item. And after that, um, what happens is it actually it creates the item within the invoices SharePoint list, and that item will trigger a Power Automate flow, and the flow will check whether it's a new item or an existing item. Based on the status value, it will actually sends notifications to the first approver, or it will calculate all the approvers and start creating the tasks, and then it will actually set the status to pending division approval. That's the first approval. So let's refresh it. You can see for the first one, it actually marked as pending division approval. So if I just double click it, you can see as a requester, I submitted it. If I come back, I shouldn't be updating it as a requester. So I can see no more buttons, or all of that is completely managed, not to show. I mean, we cannot edit any details here. One thing is, as soon as the invoice is created, we are automatically generating some invoice ID, and also the status we are showing on top of the screen as well. And throughout the process, whenever we open this invoice, you can see the preview on the right side as we browse through the other details of the invoice. So the first thing is, because when an invoice is submitted for that particular division, what happened is in the approvers, it actually goes through that. And for this particular division, for division approver, the process actually checks this approval order. And if all of them are zeros, then it understands the process within the logic within the Power App understands that it is a parallel process. If it has other than zeros, any number is there, that means it's a sequential, and it finds the first number and creates a task and assigns to the first person. So that is why in the task you can see it picks up the first person and assigns the task. So the user will receive a notification also with a link to the application, like and if the user clicks on it, it will directly bring the user to this invoice as well. And if I log in, if I open this application as a normal requester, I will not see approve or reject button because my account has an application admin rights on this application. That's why I see approve or reject. Even though I'm an application admin here, even though I see this button as approve or reject, I cannot approve this one. The reason is the task is assigned to a different person, not me. Like to prove that, like if I click on it, what happens is it opens the task details, but it disables the buttons for approve and reject as well. Because the task is assigned to a different person, not me. That's why it disables them. But as an application admin, I can reassign the task to myself to continue the process. When I click on the button, I can go and reassign the task to my account. So I can see here, I can assign it to myself. The task immediately gets updated with my account. And then if I come back to this, I can see my account and then the button is enabled for us and I can start approving it. Approved, and I'll click on approve. So as soon as I approve it, you can see immediately the logic within the Power App, it will try to grab the second person in the line. And it will create a task for the second person and marks the first one as completed. Color coding is also there, and the task is no more available for approve or reject. And you can see the details also when it was approved, what is the status, when who approved it, and what was the timestamp as well. And the second person in the series of approvers, we know like Daniel is the second person. So now again, the same process. I cannot approve it. I need to reassign it to myself. And then click on update. And again, I'm updating, approve it. And the third person. So before I approve the third person, throughout this process so far, multiple tasks were created and assigned to different people, and then assigned. I mean, again, it kind of some are approved, some are in process. So if I can actually go out of my, we will not keep on approving in the same screen. So if I come back to the same item here, I can see my tasks here, but the history tab here, this is mainly meant for the auditing purpose. So in the history, if I scroll down all the way, you can see the timestamp, new invoice was submitted with all the following details. And after that, the behind the scenes, a process also ran at this particular point, and it created all the tasks and assigned to whom. All of that information is there. And also I actually assigned one of the tasks to my account. I can see that, and also I approved it. You can see the whole auditing details, like stack trace or all this information we can see in a timestamp way. So whenever we are doing any action, there is some logic within the Power Apps and Power Automate, which actually appends this custom messages to the on top of the existing messages. So let me just approve it, and then again the final one. If once I approve it, and then update. This is actually a assigned date, and now I can say approved. Once I approve it, this is the sequence of in the role like a division approver. I got only 3 users. Once I'm done, immediately what it should do is the background process. It should create 3 different tasks because all the 3 next level are all parallel approvers. So it should create 3 approvers. I mean 3 tasks. So let me just approve it. Then it actually did not, I mean, the background process will run for some time because it needs to update the item in the SharePoint and that will trigger the flow. Generally, there is an SLA to trigger the flow from a SharePoint list. So that's why like I'm showing some custom message to the user. Whenever the flow needs to run or in the process, there is a flag within the SharePoint that will tell us whether the process yet to run or in the middle. So as soon as the process finishes, this message will disappear and also you will start seeing the additional tasks. Let's keep creating it. So it started creating all the background tasks. So because we are doing everything in the same screen, we are not navigating away or in general, like practically one person will not be there in the same screen to do the entire process. So now we are here like as a parallel, like one of them needs to approve it, not every person. So for example, I approve it as the second one. If I go there, I will just reassign it to myself. So just update. I updated it again. It's a parallel process, so not every approver needs to approve it. Only one person needs to approve it. So I'm just calling it as approved. As soon as I finished one of the tasks, the other 2 will be cancelled automatically by the system itself, telling the user that, okay, one other person actually completed it. So if I go to any of the cancelled one, because the other people can come and try to approve it, but by the time the task is already cancelled. So if I go to their task, actually you can see all the task details and with a message saying the task is cancelled by the system as corporate approver me approved other corporate approval task. So I'm communicating to the user through the user interface also saying that this task was already cancelled because some other approver approved that task. So now like because the corporate is done, now the third level, which is accounting one. Again, this is a sequential one. So if again it will go through all of them, all the steps again. So if I click on it, I need to maybe approve it. So approved. Okay, now let me actually remove the third person. That way, like we can reduce one step at least. Okay, I just removed the third person in the accounting one. So let me, and I will reassign. I just reassigned and approve it. It did not create anymore. And you can see the invoice says it is completed. And the background process runs to send some notification emails. So that's it. So overall, like you can see the history will also be updated as well. So this is one, I mean, the reason, as I said, there are 2 reasons for this approach is one thing is because it's an invoice. Invoice approvals generally take longer than normal document approval process. So sometimes some verification needs to be done or other checks needs to be done to approve some invoices. So these invoices at every level needs more time and they are not sure like how long it can take. Most of the times it may approval may happen very fast, but in some cases it may take more than a month. So they were not sure about it. And also the second thing is they want the audit trial as well. So that's another thing they want to see. And apart from a conventional user interface, like going into the Power Platform's Action Center, I built a separate user interface where they can see the task details, and these tasks will wait for the approver as long as they want. And also, I gave a feature to reassign it to a different person, and also tracking the reassignment also in the history as well. And also, if any user actually going on a vacation or out of office for some time or busy with something, they can also set the long-term delegation. Like if I assign one person as my replacement for time start and end, I can actually assign it, and all the new invoices, they are going to create the task and assign it to the new person. And there is also a Power Automate flow which will actually checks the end date of that delegation, and whenever it is done, it will actually marks it as deactive uh, in the backend system. So that I already implemented for the client, but not in the demo right now, but that was done as well. Any questions here?
No questions in the chat so far.
Okay.
And if feel free, anyone, if you have any question, you can always raise your hand as well, or drop it in the chat. Krishna can take those questions along the way.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, Carl, we can hear you.
Yeah, this is Carl Kelpfleisch at DTCC, and I was just curious because we do a lot of things like this, similar with SharePoint list, and then custom approvals, and then we've run into cases where our SharePoint list is getting really big, so we get like more than 5,000 rows. Is there any workaround for large SharePoint lists, or do we just need to like back end it to a database or Dataverse or something?
Yeah, again, every data source is different, and one thing is whatever 5,000 limit that you mentioned, it's a list view threshold limit. But again, if we use SharePoint as a data source, it is definitely recommended. We should index the columns, all the columns that we use them within, like filtering, sorting, and all those operations as well. And also we need to again, the one other important thing is, if the data after approval process, if we think we are not going to check that information anytime soon, like maybe after like any regular intervals, like after 90 days or 6 months, some period, archiving those items, like moving those items into separate lists, may be recommended. So that is one thing. And third thing is the Power Apps, even though you are exceeding, if you have the dashboards from your Power App, even though your list has more than 5,000 items, it will still show the data from the SharePoint, but uh, but archiving is definitely recommended.
Great, thanks very much.
Mm-hmm. But if you, again, depending on the data size, it's always recommended to use some relational data source like a SQL or a Dataverse. It is highly recommended, but there are pros and cons we can talk about, like licensing requirements or other things as well. If you want me, if you ask me my recommendation, I mean, my clients still stick with the SharePoint only because of the free license, or they don't need premium license
Right.
for these kind of applications. Otherwise, I 100% recommend to go with Dataverse.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, that's kind of where we're at. Is we're doing a lot with the free license, pushing everything as hard as we can.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you have a requirement that beats that. So
Yeah.
appreciate it.
That's happening with every client. Like we initially start with SharePoint, but at one point you will land up that all the users needs premium license. But premium license will give you a lot more features as advantages as well.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Mhm. Yes. Uh, David, thank you. Yes. Other than SharePoint, all connectors, pretty much any other data source is a premium connector. So you need not just I mean, all the users, whoever is accessing the app, they need, there are different licensing models, like either you buy per user license, or you can, if you think you don't know how much the cost will be, at least you can start with some subscription based licenses as well, like for Azure subscriptions. You can assign it to an environment, and then maybe 100 users can be added to that or something, and depending on usage wise, you will be billed to that subscription.
Krishna, this is a very cool representation of how you can, get over the limitations of the approval actions and, still be able to have any of your long-running approval processes with the combination of Power Apps and Power Automate, and not necessarily, depend on the approval action set up in your or the approvals connection set up in your environment. Do you normally prefer going this route? I mean, are there scenarios that you would recommend using the approval action?
Yes, thank you, Geetha, for all the compliments. But yes, if you see the use case is simple enough to use out of the box, I always prefer using out of the box. No doubt about it, because maintenance is another thing. Even if, I mean, for this, I really worked hard to put together this logic and everything. But if once I leave the organization, it's going to be hard for maintenance. If somebody wants to add any new features or other things,
Mhm.
they need to know or understand the logic. So I definitely do not recommend going in this approach unless you got some good Power Platform professionals at home. I mean, like in the organization who can easily understand it. But always go with out of the box approval actions. And if they become, again, understand all the limitations with it as well. Because lot of times what happens is, uh, I mean, a lot of clients, the customers or the end users complain, I did not receive an approval action notification. So in that or how do I restart my approval process? So we need to take into action, like consideration in all those aspects as well. So here, if I go in customized approach, I can build all of that into my application, but it needs a little more effort than the out of the box one.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Um, I'm apologize if I'm jumping forward at all, but I'm curious to how many Power Automate workflows do you have behind the scenes that is doing all of this?
Oh, okay. That's a great question. So for this demo, I have only a couple of them. Let me just invoices. It's my solution there. Yeah, there are a couple of them only. If you see here, one main create approval task for invoice. This is the main one. I'm actually I created a child flow as well, which will be like repeatedly calling from the main flow. And there is one more flow to export the data into PDF document as well.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah.
so only
From the
three of them.
list, yeah.
Yeah, only three of them. So,
Okay.
but yeah, I mean, not many, but as I said, the other features were not actually, I did not build here, but I built that features like a delegation, long-term delegation, and reminder notifications and all of that. They can go into separate flows as well.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So yeah, this is what I think I did not show this export to PDF. It's a yeah, it will actually collects the information is right now spread into multiple tabs in multiple places. It actually creates a customized like a PDF document where I can share this file directly to the user. I mean, auditor or somebody. Yep. So the whole approval process is not happening, like part of the approval process is happening within approval, this flow, but majority of the approval calculations or the if you observed, like whenever like I was finishing one task, it immediately creating another task right here. The reason is the whole logic is also part, and majority of the logic is in the Power Apps itself.
I
Like
see.
yeah,
Okay.
it is a combination of Power Apps and Power Automate together.
Yeah, so it's basically any heavy lifting tasks that you have to do, you orchestrate that through the Power Automate flow. But if it's something simple enough that you can handle within the app, then you're just using Power Effects to do some patches and status and metadata. Yep.
And in that case, did you say you're using what within Power Apps?
Oh, it's using the Power Effects formulas,
Okay.
connecting to those SharePoint
Yeah.
lists and building the logic, the formulas. For example, if I go here, like, I mean, the logic may be like, may look very lengthy here, but if I click on approve button, you can see the logic is like very long
Okay.
here. Yeah,
Excellent. Yeah, that helps me a lot because I think this is really the area where I yeah, that provides a lot of good direction for me because I haven't thought in terms of formulas this involved in Power Apps. That's really helpful. I mean, of course I use formulas, but they're not taking action nearly as much as this. This is great to see.
Yeah.
And that helps me understand the sort of less weight on Power Automate and what all it needs to do.
yes. So for
Okay.
example, yeah, if I need to do a simple task also in the Power Automate, I need to use get item or get items and then parse through every single item or get the metadata. Like you may need at least 2-3 different actions that you need to drop into that designer to do a simple task. But in the Power Automate, like in the Power Apps, you can write a very simple Power Effects formula that can do a lot of magic.
Yeah. Okay. That's great.
And I think it also helps with the performance, right, of your app. You
Yes.
don't have to do that
Yeah, I would
extra
think
hop to
so.
Power Automate to, make those, wait for that extra call to happen. You're just doing it natively within the app.
Yeah.
So when you reassign an approver, is that going through your Power Automate flow, or are you doing that within the app itself?
Within the app itself, as it's shown you here, the invoice task is my SharePoint list where I'm storing all the tasks. So when I'm coming here, like when I click on this button, actually, let me go back. My requests, maybe I can go to another one. I can come here, approve task. When I click on this button, based on the button which I clicked, there is a small form here. Actually, it's a form control. It's actually the SharePoint list form, like the form control, which actually showing only the assign to field, hiding all the other controls. That way, I can update that particular field.
Yeah.
So it will be immediate.
Mhm.
and the update button actually calls the submit form of that task form. So yeah.
Also, you had the section in the app where you were showing your historical audit trail of the approvals happening.
This one. Yeah.
Yeah. So how is that stored in SharePoint in the back end?
There are multiple ways to do it, but I actually in my main SharePoint list, because this history is again related to the individual invoice item. So I did create a column, like a multi-line text field column, invoice history, and I'm keep on appending all my custom messages to that.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah, I've done that too in the past for another client where it's a simple solution for the problem, right? You can just append it unless you're tracking large volumes of data in that text field. If it's something simple, then you should be able to go with that.
If it is like if I'm using some SQL or Dataverse, probably I can write into a history table or something, and it will be much easier.
Yeah. I mean, any other data source, you probably wouldn't need to worry about the volume of data being stored. Yeah.
That's good.
This might be off topic of approvals, but did you mention that you are using model controls in your Power App?
No, I actually was trying to convert or build more latest features into this app. Like even some of these controls are modern controls, elevation request or some controls are. I'm started using it, but it's not fully done. Even I try to use Copilot control also, connecting to invoice to see if it actually responds, but it is not working. I'm still working on it.
Got it. And then on your dashboard gallery, I mean, is that, I mean, you're not using it. You're trying to.
This is a modern one.
Do you see any issues with it? I mean, I've used some of them. I see some glitches with
Yes,
the
yes.
gallery.
I do feel the documentation is not pretty clear. And also the properties compared to the classic ones, it's not intuitive. You need to write like a lot of other things. Yeah, it's not as easy as it was.
Even the colors, right? The button,
Yeah.
you're kind of limited to a color set that you can't change. But I mean, there's a reason why it's in preview. So hopefully it'll come out, and when it's available publicly, we might have it all fine-tuned.
Yes.
Anyone else have any questions or thoughts about the process? Yeah, and I was wondering if would you all be up for turning on your cameras? I was wondering if I could take a quick together mode picture of the group here.
I have to adjust mine a little bit, but yeah, let's see.
Yeah. It's always good to.
I love it.
Match.
I'm driving.
Be careful, Carl.
Yeah, well, you're wearing your glasses, so you don't even have to look in the camera. That's fine. Are you guys seeing Neil's camera?
Yeah, actually, I don't see my. Hang on, I have it on, but then it. I think I just need to switch. Something wrong with the app here, or I've got it. Let's see.
I'm gonna see if I can get.
Sorry about that.
Mode. Okay, so
yeah, go ahead and
we
grab
have.
that. I don't know. I'll have to sort out my camera.
Yeah, we have like about 5 of us showing up. Anyone else? There's still time. Who wants to turn on their cameras? All right, we'll take a snapshot of.
I'll figure out mine for next time.
That's all right. Okay, so I am going to give me a minute on the count of 3. Cheese. Okay, let's do one more. I think we have a couple of us with our eyes closed, so I'm just gonna get rid of that. All right. Okay, one more time. We'll go. Okay. One. Oh, sorry, my snipping tool is freezing up on me. All right, let's go. 1, 2, and 3. There we go. There we go. I got all the smiles. I'll put that up here for you guys to see how that's turned out. See if I can get it to be. Can't get it. Okay. I'll share my screen here. You guys see it?
Yes.
Yeah, there we go. I think we've got us all captured in here. We can always label the empty seats with the ones who couldn't get their cameras on.
Yeah. Thank you.
But thank you so much, everyone, for taking the time. And then, as always, we appreciate your support for the user group, and also always happy to see new faces and names. And if you're ever in a conference, or if you are coming to the Power Platform conference, let me know. I'd always be happy to catch up over there. And anyone coming to the Power Platform conference in October?
I won't be.
I've got my ticket booked.
Oh,
Okay.
cool. Okay, so yeah, then I will see you guys there. But thanks again for taking the time on a weekday evening to come join our meetup, and we always look forward to seeing you again next month. And for those of you who haven't registered or are not a member of the user group, feel free to scan the QR code and be so you can always stay up to date on our latest announcements and the next meetups that we plan for. But go have a good rest of your day, and thanks again, Krishna, for joining us. And this was a great session. We really loved seeing all of your insights and your demos as well.
Thank you.
We'll see you all next month.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Geetha, and thank you, Krishna.
Thanks, Krishna. Thanks, Geetha. Have a good night.